Yo, what's good, Dub Nation? I need you to stop everything you're doing right now. I mean everything. Put down your phone, turn off whatever show you're watching, pull over if you're driving, because what I'm about to share with you just changed the entire landscape of the NBA. I was watching First Take this morning and Anthony Davis went on live television and said things that have the Golden State Warriors front office scrambling, Stephen Curry calling his agent, and the rest of the league in full panic mode. This isn't a rumor, this isn't speculation, this is Anthony Davis in his own words on camera, talking about the Warriors in a way that nobody expected. What happened on that show this morning is going to define the 2026 offseason, and I need to walk you through every single second of it because the details are everything. Hey, what's up everyone? Real quick before we get into everything, that like button is literally what determines if this reaches hundreds or thousands of fans. Takes 1 second but makes a huge impact on the channel's growth. Just smash that like button right now. It's the easiest thing you can do, but honestly the biggest way to support this content. Every single like pushes this further, so hit it now. So let me set the scene for you. Anthony Davis was booked on First Take with Stephen A. Smith. Now everyone knew this interview was going to be interesting because the entire league is talking about AD's future right now. The man is sitting on a $58.5 million salary for next season with a player option worth $62. $8 million for 2027-28, and he's stuck on a Wizards team that just won the draft lottery to draft AJ Debnza. Chris Haynes went on record saying he thinks there's a good chance AD ends up somewhere else before next season. The Wizards president Michael Winger tried to put out the fire by saying they want to keep him, but come on, we all know what's happening. AD played only 20 games this year, all with Dallas before they shipped him to Washington in that February mega deal, and he never even suited up for the Wizards because of that torn ligament in his left hand. So the man has been sitting, watching, and apparently making phone calls. The interview started standard. Stephen A. asked about the finger rehab, asked about how it felt watching the playoffs from home, asked about the lottery win. AD gave polished answers. Everything was fine. But then Stephen A. went to a place nobody expected. He said, Anthony, the Golden State Warriors just went 37-45. They missed the playoffs for the second time in 3 years. Steve Kerr's future is uncertain. Jimmy Butler tore his ACL, but they still have Stephen Curry averaging 26.6 points per game at 38 years old. Is there a world where Anthony Davis ends up in a Warriors uniform? And that question detonated a bomb that I don't think anyone in that studio was prepared for. AD paused. Not one of those quick pauses where you're collecting your thoughts. I mean a long pause. 5, 6, 7 seconds of complete silence on live television. Stephen A. didn't interrupt. Molly didn't jump in. Everyone in that studio felt the weight of what was about to come. And then Anthony Davis looked up and said words that sent shockwaves through the entire basketball universe. Stephen A., I'm gonna tell you something that I haven't told anyone publicly. About 3 weeks ago, I got a phone call. It was late at night, probably 10 or 11 o'clock. I looked at my phone and the caller ID said Steph Curry. Now, Steph and I have always been cool. We've played in all-star games together. We've done USA basketball together. We've always had mutual respect, but we've never had a deep personal conversation about basketball like the one we had that night. Steph called me and he said, AD, I need to talk to you about something serious. And I could hear it in his voice that this wasn't small talk. This wasn't a casual check-in. This was a man on a mission. I literally had to rewind this clip because I thought I was hearing things. Stephen A. leaned forward so far he was practically on the desk. The whole studio went quiet enough to hear a pin drop, and AD kept going. Steph told me that he's watched the Warriors organization struggle for the last 3 years, and it's eating him alive. He said, I averaged 26 points this year, but I only played 43 games because my knee kept giving out. Jimmy tore his ACL in January. We traded Kuminga for Porzingis, and then KP barely played because of his POTS condition. Draymond is 36 and can't carry the physical load anymore. We went 37-45 and lost in the play-in to Phoenix after beating the Clippers. I'm running out of time and I refuse to let my career end like this. And when Steph Curry tells you he refuses to let his career end like this, that hits different because you know this man has 4 rings, 2 MVPs, he's the greatest shooter in the history of basketball, and he's watching his legacy slip through his fingers because the roster around him isn't good enough. Now Stephen A. jumped in and asked the obvious question. What did Curry propose? And what AD said next made my jaw drop to the floor. Steph said he wants me in Golden State. He said he's been studying the cap situation. He's been talking to Mike Dunleavy Jr. He's been laying the groundwork. He said, AD, you and I together would be the most unstoppable pick and roll combination in the history of the NBA. Nobody can guard you in the post when I'm pulling their center out to the three-point line. Nobody can help off me when you're rolling to the rim. The math doesn't work for any defense in this league. And you know what? He's right. I've thought about it every single day since that conversation, and the basketball fit is absolutely perfect. Bro, I almost fell out of my seat. Anthony Davis just revealed on national television that Stephen Curry personally recruited him to the Golden State Warriors. This is tampering in broad daylight, and nobody in that studio even cared because the basketball implications were too enormous to worry about fines. But AD wasn't done. He started breaking down the basketball specifics in a way that showed he'd been thinking about this deeply. Let me tell you why Golden State makes so much sense. I've spent the last 2 years on teams that don't fit my game. In Dallas, I was competing for touches with Cooper Flagg and playing center even though I've always been most effective at the 4. In Washington, I never even played a game. But in Golden State, the system is built for a player like me. Steve Kerr's motion offense, the constant movement, the screens, the spacing. That's my dream system. You put me in the dunker spot with Steph Curry pulling up from 35 feet. Every time the defense collapses on Steph, I'm wide open for a lob. Every time they try to help on my post up, Steph is standing there with that release that takes about half a second. It's unguardable. The math literally doesn't work for the defense. And then he said something that I think is going to reverberate through the entire league. He looked at Stephen A and his tone changed. It got more serious, more personal. But it's not just about the basketball. It's about what this would mean for Steph's legacy. Look, I know what people say about me. They say I only won a championship because of LeBron. They say I was the second best player on a team that needed LeBron to be great. And maybe there's some truth to that for 2020? I don't know. But Steph has a similar thing hanging over his head. People say he needed KD for those 2017 and 2018 titles. People say when KD left, Steph couldn't get it done without another superstar. Well, here's his chance. Here's my chance. Two guys who have been told their whole careers that they need someone else to validate their greatness, coming together to prove everyone wrong. Steph is 38. I'm 33. We probably have 2, maybe 3 years of elite basketball left between us, so why not make those years count? The interview went to commercial, and I'm sitting here in my living room, literally with my hands on my head, trying to process what just happened. Anthony Davis just said on live television that Steph Curry called him, recruited him, and laid out a plan for them to team up in Golden State. This isn't a vague rumor from an anonymous source. This is directly from AD's mouth. When the show came back from break, I thought maybe AD had calmed down. Maybe someone in his ear told him to stop. But no, when the cameras came back on, Anthony Davis was even more fired up. He was leaning forward. His energy was completely different from the first segment. This man had been holding this in for weeks, and now the dam was broken. Stephen A asked him about the current Warriors roster, and AD went in. Let me be honest about what I see in Golden State right now, because I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The Warriors have real problems. Jimmy Butler tore his ACL in January, and he's not going to be back until late 2026 at the earliest. He's 36 years old, coming off a major knee reconstruction. I love Jimmy. I respect everything he's accomplished, but we don't know what version of him is coming back. That's a $56.8 million question mark sitting on the books. And I'm not saying that to disrespect him, I'm saying it because it's the reality. The Warriors can't afford to bet Steph Curry's last great years on hoping Jimmy Butler comes back at even 70% of what he was. He kept going. Then you look at the rest of the roster. Draymond Green played 68 games this year, which is more than anyone else on the team. And bless that man because he's a warrior in every sense of the word. But Draymond is 36. He's not the defensive player of the year anymore. He averaged, 8 points a game this year? The Warriors need someone who can be the defensive anchor and give you 20 and 10 every night. That's what I do. That's been my entire career. Draymond himself has been recruiting me behind the scenes, and I don't think he'd mind me saying that. He called me the week after the season ended and said, AD, I'll do all the dirty work. I'll guard the best wing player every night. I'll set every screen. I'll do everything I've always done. All I need you to do is protect that rim and score in the post, and we'll win a championship. When Draymond Green, a man with 4 rings, tells you that, you listen. Now, Stephen A. pushed him on the coaching situation because Steve Kerr's contract just expired and his top 2 assistants, Terry Stotts and Jerry Stackhouse, already left. The Warriors are literally rebuilding their coaching staff, and AD's response was fascinating. I've always had tremendous respect for Steve Kerr. The way he coaches, the way he moves the ball, the unselfishness he demands, that's basketball at its highest level. I've never played for a coach like that. In New Orleans, it was all about me getting my numbers. In LA, the offense was LeBron-centric, which is the right call when you have LeBron, but it meant I was often waiting for opportunities instead of being integrated into the system. In Dallas, I was just a piece being moved around. But Kerr would use me the way I'm supposed to be used. He turned Kevin Looney into a useful player. He maximized Andrew Wiggins. Imagine what he could do with a 7-time All-NBA talent who can shoot from the mid-range, protect the rim, run the floor, and pass out of the high post. I'm getting excited just thinking about it. And then AD dropped what might have been the most revealing thing of the entire interview. He talked about the lifestyle factor. Let me be personal for a second. I've been on 3 teams in the last 18 months. I went from LA to Dallas to Washington. My family has been uprooted. My kids have changed schools. My wife has had to set up 3 different homes. I'm tired. I'm mentally exhausted from the instability. And when I think about Golden State, I think about the Bay Area. I think about a world-class organization that has a culture of winning. I think about being on the West Coast where my family is comfortable. I think about playing in Chase Center in front of fans who understand greatness because they watch Steph, Clay, and Draymond build something historic. I don't want to bounce around the league anymore. I want to go somewhere and build something. I want to plant my flag and say this is where I'm finishing my career. And right now, Golden State feels like that place. Bro, I had goosebumps, full body goosebumps. This wasn't a man talking about a hypothetical. This was a man who has already made up his mind. You could hear it in his voice. See it in his eyes. Anthony Davis wants to be a Golden State Warrior. Period. Stephen A. asked him one final question. Anthony, if this happens, if you end up in Golden State, what does the ceiling look like? And AD's answer was the mic drop moment of the entire interview. The ceiling. The ceiling is a championship. And I'm not just saying that. Let me paint the picture. Starting 5, Steph Curry, whoever you want at the 2, Draymond Green at the 3, me at the 4, and you bring in a solid center, or you let me play the 5 in crunch time. The bench has Brandon Podziemski, who's young and hungry, DeAnthony Melton, who was their best plus-minus guy after Jimmy, Gary Payton II, who's still an elite defender, Al Horford, who gives you veteran minutes. That's a team that can compete with anyone. Oklahoma City, I'll take SGA on one end and Steph on the other. San Antonio, Wembanyama is special, but he's 20 years old, and I've been doing this for 13 years. Cleveland, New York, I don't care who comes out of the East. If Steph and I are healthy and playing together, we are going to the finals. And I don't care who disagrees with me because the basketball speaks for itself. And then, right as the interview was about to end, AD said one last thing. He looked directly into the camera, not at Stephen A. Not at the crew, but straight at the audience. And he said, Steph, if you're watching this, I just want you to know, I'm in. Let's go get that ring. The studio exploded. Stephen A. jumped out of his chair. The production crew was losing it in the background. This was the most iconic moment in First Take history since Kevin Durant joined the Warriors in 2016. Anthony Davis just told Stephen Curry on live television in front of millions of people that he is ready to come to Golden State. Now let me break down what this means for Dub Nation because the implications are massive. First, the Warriors have been talking about refreshing the roster around Curry. Anthony Slater literally reported that in the next 2 months, the Warriors are expected to refresh the roster and remake the coaching staff. Well, there is no bigger roster refresh than adding Anthony Davis. This is a 10-time All-Star, a champion, a 5-time All-NBA player, a 5-time All-Defensive player. This is the guy who averaged 20.4 points and 11.1 rebounds in only 20 games this year before the finger injury. When healthy, this is still a top 15 player in the world. Second, the trade logistics are actually more realistic than people think. The Warriors have Jimmy Butler's $56.8 million expiring contract that could be the centerpiece of a deal to Washington. The Wizards don't want to pay that, but they could flip Butler's contract or absorb it as an expiring asset. Throw in some draft capital, maybe Brandon Podziemski or Moses Moody to sweeten the deal, and suddenly you have a framework. Mike Dunleavy Jr. is reportedly already thinking about creative ways to reshape this roster. This could be the move. Third, and this is the part that gives me absolute chills, think about the narrative. Stephen Curry and Anthony Davis, two of the most gifted players of their generation, teaming up for one last championship run. Curry at 38 trying to prove he can win without KD. Davis at 33 trying to prove he can win without LeBron.